Welcome to another SARE National session. My name is Jenny Anchondo, and I am here as your host and moderator for today. I look forward to these each and every week as a way for all of us to become enriched. SARE provides this information, this knowledge for us, and we just soak into it together. So today's topic is credit scores. So we're talking about really an overview of the importance of credit scores, credit utilization, the impact of collections, strategies for improving credit, and more. So I know many of you are business owners, potentially aspiring business owners. Even if you're not, this is still going to be an incredibly advantageous session for you. I'm really looking forward to it. And if you're not familiar with our guest today, I want to tell you a little bit about him. He is Tony Arps. He's actually a project director and really an experienced business consultant, entrepreneur, has 25 years of experience in small business development, transportation, and economic development. So what he's doing right now, and he's going to have to explain more about what this means because it's a specific title. I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but he currently serves as the project director for the US DOT Gulf Region Small Business Transportation Resource Center. So this is actually operated by the Greater Dallas Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Some of you will be listening and watching in from the Greater Dallas area. Some of you are spread out all over the country, but he'll be able to give you a little bit more about what his role is and who he serves. But he's been doing this position specifically since 2012. He really works to promote opportunities for small businesses in Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and New Mexico by providing technical assistance, financial counseling, business training programs, and then serving as a liaison to transportation agencies, contractors, and related organizations. So in terms of things that Tony has done, he has planned and facilitated strategic DOT programs like the bonding education program and short-term lending program. And again, our topic today is credit, which is always a popular topic when we have these sessions. It's one that everybody is sort of drawn to because it is so important. He has extensive experience supporting disadvantaged and minority-owned businesses. So from 2009 up until present day, he's worked for the Texas Business Opportunity and Development Program at Cedar Valley College, which is local here to us in the Metroplex. He works on coordinating training, developing curriculum, and providing contractor development services for particular firms on transportation projects. Now, previously to that, so 2006, 2007 era, he provided business consulting and instruction at Cedar Valley College Small Business Development Center. Now, in addition to this, he's also owned and operated his own successful business, including FSL Lawn and Landscaping Services. And that went on for almost a decade from the 90s to early 2000s. And then Apollo Video from 93 to 96, where he managed all components of it. So sales, marketing, finance, human resources, was actually recognized by the Tyler Metropolitan Chamber of Commerce as Business Person of the Year. Listen, we can go way back on Tony, but it's such an important topic. I want to give him his due. I want him to be able to have, this full time to be able to enrich us with his knowledge. No pressure, but the time is now. All right, time to hear from Tony Arps. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Jenny. And I'll tell you, you gave me quite an introduction to go behind. So the bar has been raised. So I'm going to. You gave me a challenge today. Again, my name is Tony Arps, and I'm a project director here with USDOT. And I'm going to go ahead and begin with my first slide and show that. And I'm going to talk as I'm showing that slide. Solving the mystery of the credit score. I picked this title because to many, their credit score is a mystery. And it's just a mystery because it's something that many people don't have, or many individuals don't have a good understanding of it. But before as we finish watching this, you'll have a good understanding of the credit score. Jenny gave me a great introduction, but that's just a little snippet of what I do as project director. So let's just go ahead and dive into the presentation. What is a credit score? A credit score is a numerical representation of a person's creditworthiness. It is based on credit history, including the number of open accounts, total level of debt, repayment history, and other factors. The purpose of the credit score is to play down the human judgment and bias when making a lending decision. It doesn't use your race, doesn't use gender, doesn't use sex, doesn't use politics. The credit score is a summary that helps prove to lenders that you have the ability and the credibility to pay a loan back. Back again to the importance of the score. It's important to maintain a credit score is extremely important for you small business owners. As I mentioned earlier, when you're seeking bonding and you're seeking a loan from the bank, when you open a business, I think one of the things that I didn't quite understand is when I opened my business, I went and got to try to get a business loan. Well, when you first open it up and you're small, they're going to look at your personal credit in making a decision as to whether or not you get that loan. So it's very important that as a business owner, you have good personal credit because your first three loans are going to be looking at your credit worthiness. And of course, I won't delve into it a lot, but bonding a contracts to know what that is when going out and winning projects. They have to put a bond up that the third person guarantor will guarantee that they'll complete the project. Um, Most people are aware of the core cause of bad credit. Most people, if the credit is not where they want it to be, they always say, well, I made a few late payments, I got a collection, but they still lack the knowledge and techniques and the different small ways of improving their credit. Uh, Many people with excellent credits are not aware of all that impact their score. Many times what has happened is we started our careers out, we've got a good income, we started our family, uh, we've accumulated a little debt, we may have bought a house, and then children come on, we accumulate a little more debt, and then things happen, and then we find ourselves utilizing more credit than we should be. And it makes life difficulty. And that's something that we want to really uh, have control over. Uh, in the credit score, there are two major scoring companies in the US. There's FICO, and then there's the Vantage score. They differ a little bit in their approaches, but they agree on what matters most. Okay. Those two companies, of course, first one I'm going to talk about is Fair Isaac. And Fair Isaac, or the FICO score, 90% of all issues of credit use the FICO score. It's more commonly, again, it's Fair Isaac, known as FICO. It's a data analytic company known for its credit scoring and predictive software services. This company was founded in 1956, and their flagship product is the FICO score, a commonly used consumer credit risk product in the US and other countries. So 1956, they have a lot of data. And they say now that data is the new oil in Texas. But that data is so important. And they can take that data and they can assist lenders and credit grantors with identifying risky borrowers. So they got a lot of algorithms to do all this, but having all that historical data, they can get a better assessment of what is a good credit-worthy customer. The other company is the Vantage score. They develop a model that enables lenders to analyze the consumer's creditworthiness more systematically than the conventional means. FICO used more of a conventional means of scoring models. So what Vantage wanted to do was they wanted to expand the universe of borrowers. It was launched in 2006. It's an independently managed joint venture of the three major consumer reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. The Vantage score developed models that enable lenders to analyze their creditworthiness more than these conventional scoring models, because again, they want to expand the universe. This was launched in, of course, again, as I mentioned, in 2006. One thing about the Vantage score, they look at factors that the conventional scoring model doesn't look at, like the FICO. They look at rent payments, they look at utilities, they look at cable bill, phone bills. They're aiming to provide a more inclusive assessment of the credit risk, especially those with limit or no credit history. And incidentally, when it comes to credit history, 19% of all adults do not have a credit file or very limited credit file. So that's where Vantage really came in at. They're trying to find ways to assess the credit worthiness of those particular individuals so that companies can have them as customers. That's the whole thing. We want more customers. That's what the retailers were probably saying. Give us more customers. And as you notice, there's a lot of fintech companies out there that are giving credit to individuals. So they want more and more customers. Back again to the importance of the score. I'm going to talk about a couple other things. I talked about a business loan, But for consumers and businesses, insurance is an important part of that. When you're getting your insurance renewed, there's a very likelihood that insurance company is checking your credit before they set the rates. And so your credit score will impact the rate that the insurance companies will charge. And we'll talk about that. And as I mentioned, better interest rates. That, of course, when you're getting a loan, when you're first trying to purchase a home, interest rates it's just so important. That impacts what you pay per month. It could be the difference between a $1,200 house payment and a $1,500 house payment. So it's important that you have a good credit score so you can get the best rate. And also it can impact how much you pay down on the property. Employment, many times employers will pull credit reports, especially if you work in areas where there's a lot of security involved, or if you work where there's dealing with financials, and a lot of consumer data, because to a certain extent, the credit score kind of reflect on your responsiveness. So you want to make sure that whoever's handling your personal data, who's handling any parts of your business, they're responsible. And so the credit score shows responsibility. Rental application. This is something that is really it's heartbreaking sometimes when I see this happen to people. Maybe you may have to find some place to live for whatever your current living arrangement has changed. You find some place to live, only to find out that for some reason you can't be approved for that complex that you're trying to move into because of your credit score and your credit application. So it's very important that you to keep up with those scores. The other thing is the thing about it, 37 of adults do not know how their credit score is calculated. And I hope you're not one of those 37, but 37% do not know how their credit score is calculated. This is a quote from someone that I always, in fact, it's on my signature on my email. It says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced," by James Baldwin. And that's what I find so often when it comes to credit and credit scores. I work with a lot of business owners, and I work with individuals that are trying to seek credit. And when I ask them, well, how does your credit score? How's your credit? They'll say, I don't know. I haven't looked at it in a couple of years. I say, a couple of years? Once they saw that their credit score had maybe decreased, because this is the kind of emotional thing. Once it decreased, they just didn't want to look at it again unless they could make a big positive contribution to it. But not looking at it and monitoring your credit, that's just not a good thing. Because I'm going to talk later about a lot of inaccuracies that can come into being when your credit information is being reported by different credits. So you want to face it. And it's a big step sometimes. Again, it's kind of an emotional because sometimes your credit score, it speaks of you. And I could tell you from somebody been anywhere from a 560 to an 820. I didn't feel good about myself when I was at 560 or when I was at 820. So it's something that you still have to face. When you're at 600, you got to start doing it so you can get all the way back up to 800. Again, I mentioned the credit bureaus. You have Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Credit information is reported to all these bureaus, okay? Not all creditors report to all three. So you may have a credit extension with someone and they only report to Experian and TransUnion. They may not report to Equifax. So when you're getting your score based on an Equifax report, it may not have that. It could be a good thing if it's not a good factor, but if it's something that you got good credit and you want that counted in your score, you want that to be counted. The reporting agencies, they're also regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, because many of you are probably wondering out there, I've had some challenges with my credit score and I tried to get it worked on and get it fixed, but I had no place to turn to. And does anybody police these guys? There is someone that police these credit bureaus. And it's the credit regulations that's all reported through these bureaus. Although they don't make lending decisions, they're very powerful as financial institutions, as we just talked about. And information contained in the reports can have a substantial impact on the individual's future. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, the FCRA, was passed in 1970, and it regulates credit bureaus and their use and interpretation of consumer data. It's primarily designed to protect consumers from negligent and deliberately fraudulent information in their credit reports. Now, we're talking about 1970, but what you'll find is there's a lot of groups, that advocacy groups, that are constantly pushing for different changes in how an individual's credit is reported, because there are some things that probably need improvement in how it's reported, how they respond back to a consumer who has something in their report that's not correct, what things to put in it. There was talk of medical bills. Medical bills, that's a big topic, big controversy. Do medical bills included in credit report? And there was a move to remove that, but that's kind of fell off a little bit. But there are groups that are constantly working on behalf of consumers to ensure that you're treated fairly in how these scoring companies report you. The credit score. The FICO score ranges anywhere from 300 to 850. Now, I mentioned the Vantage score, but I'm going to refer more to, I'm going to say the FICO score, because they're pretty similar in the score that you get from each one of them. So you'll see me throughout the presentation say the FICO score. The score is based on several factors. It may vary among the three different credit bureaus. They're all different, as I mentioned to you, the timing, the type of information, so it may vary. The average credit score, believe it or not, when I had my credit was down and I saw the average credit score, I said, man, I must be out of it. I mean, my score was here and this is the average. But as of 2025, the average FICO score in the United States is 715. This marks a significant decline from previous year due to resumed student loan reporting and increased credit card usage. As you may remember, during the pandemic in 2020, there was a hold on payments on student loans. There was a moratorium on paying that loan. So if you had a student loan of $150, you stopped payment on it. You have to pay on it. It wasn't until recently, and if don't quote me for sure, within the last year in 2024, that those payments resumed. So here's someone with a student loan payment of $200, and all of a sudden 2020 pause, you're not paying that 200. Well, a lot of times what happens, like when you pay a bill off, you replace that with something else. So many times people have went 2 to 3 years without paying on that student loan, and now they'll have to pay for it. The other thing I may add is that student loans, not only is going to be reported on your credit score, but the government is going to be very aggressive with collecting those student loans. So whereas in the past, maybe you didn't have the Department of Treasury going after the student loan borrowers, now they're going to be very aggressive in going after those borrowers. Before, it just stayed on the credit report and just impact you from getting credit. So if you have a student loan that you're paying on or you're behind on, they can give you relief to catch it up. Be sure to do it because it plays a big part in your credit score. This again is going to show that trend. As you see in 2022, it was 717, and we're just in the second half of 2025, and it just resumed paying back on student loans. So it's 715. So that I suspect that number is going to go down slightly because there's a lot of individuals with student loans. And boy, look at that. When you have a student loan, I've had one before, and any of you out there with a student loan, it's a heavy weight on your back. I mean, it is something to tote, and it seems like you'll never pay it off. It seems like you'll never pay it off. And let's give you some numbers. 40% of the individual with student loans, if you're out there, 40% with individual student loans do not know how the student loans even work. I mean, you're indebted to something, but you don't even know how the student loan works because you've gotten different loans from different sources. And so now you're trying to work out how to go about getting this resolved because it's impacting your credit. 20%, and this shocked me too, 20% of individuals with student loans do not know how much they owe. I guess it's kind of like I talked to you earlier about knowing what your credit score is and what your credit look like. You know you're in debt, and sometimes you're like, well, I'm not going to look at it. I'm just going to pay it and not look at it. And so, but it amazed me when I found out that students don't even know how much they owe. I mentioned that the average 71% of Americans have a good credit score. Okay, this is the breakdown of how certain certain levels of scores are. For example, poor scores. 13% of the adult population has a poor credit score. 16% have a fair credit score. 21% have a good credit score. 28% very good. 22% exceptional. So that good to exceptional, that's that 71%. And that's where a lot of the average people fall at with that 715. Oh, this is something I like to talk about. Some of the myths of credit. Okay. One of them, checking your credit, your score lowers it. That's false. You get a chance to check your score. Okay. Um, that doesn't impact it. Closing old accounts improves your score. Not always. Okay. In fact, I'm going to show you later how that could possibly hurt you. Income affects score, your credit score? No. Now, I'm saying no, but remember I talked earlier that certain industries do have special scoring models. And so they have, for Isaac, do certain algorithms to score their applicants. So if you are a mortgage company, there may be some things regarding the debt to income. You may want that put in that algorithm when putting the score together. But by and large, your income will not affect your score itself. Now, when you get ready to apply for credit and they ask you what your annual income is and you don't get the limit you wanted, it's not because your credit score may be looking at your income. Myth number 5, you need to carry a balance to build credit. False. I mean, having some balance, and we'll talk later about utilization and what's a good utilization, but having a balance build your credit. You need to have one build your credit. That's necessarily true. This one here, this is one that impacts a lot of us. Good credit score is the ticket to the finer things in life. False. Okay. Realizing that when you get a good credit score, all of these credit grantors are going to be sending you credit cards. Whereas at one point you shopped at Ross or you shopped at Burlington, all of a sudden Nordstrom sends you a card. And you take that card and you go and you buy, you purchase something, you pay more than you wouldn't ordinarily pay for it. And then, right before you get ready to give them your credit card to swipe, you say, I deserve finer things in life. So that $700 blazer, it's nice. I like the material and I deserve finer things in life sometimes. So you go and you do that. But again, that's just not where you want to be. You can't use your credit to supplement your income. And that's a common thing that happens too, using credit to supplement your income, because more than anything else, sometimes you get in an emergency, but if you were to use credit, especially credit cards that carry an interest rate of 28%, it will take all your resources. So that's one thing you don't want to get happen to you. Get in that treadmill of using your credit and credit cards to supplement your income. Variations in the credit score. Credit score varies. I have people sometimes, individuals tell me, Tony, I pulled my credit score and it was 700. And, last week I pulled it and it was like 750. And it just goes back and forth. Why is that? Well, the score is going to vary. It's going to vary for a number of reasons. All credit bureaus don't get the same information. As I mentioned to you earlier, some may not report to Experian, and all 3 of them. The dates for reporting the information to the bureaus can vary. So it could be that there's a lag in reporting that to the bureau from the creditor, and therefore your score is not where it should be. Okay, so that's one of the variations. The other thing is the weight of low impact factors may vary among the bureaus. So if you got a score that's, you pull your Equifax score, you pull your TransUnion score, and you find out that they're different, but you wonder why they're different, it could be because they are weighing the low impact factors differently. And I'll talk about the low impact factors, but they could be weighing them a little bit different, what could cause, but it's not going to be that big a swing in the score. As mentioned when I mentioned about purchasing having a mortgage and the rates that they're using income, there are different scores to specific and particular industries. For example, auto lenders, they review risk a little bit differently than a mortgage lender. Okay. So the scores of each lender might vary. So what happens is a mortgage company would have one of a FICO model, and the model that an auto lender may be two different. So there are different models using two different algorithms to get this score. Although it can be confusing, the most important things to remember are the 5 core factors that affect your credit score. And lastly, although the score may vary among the 3 credit bureaus because they're looking at different information and data differently when computing the credit score, all 3 are very consistent in their use and weighing of the high impact data. So they're consistent in how they weigh the high impact data factors. And that's the next slide. These are the factors of the data that impacts your credit score. As you can see, the high impact are payments, followed by credit utilization, credit history, and you notice that I put available credit or credit mix. Sometimes some of the scores, they're using available credit, meaning that you get a certain number of points for having a larger range of credit available to you. And then some, they look at just the mix of credit because they like to see how you handling certain type of debts. They want to see how you handling installment debt, how you handling revolving debt, how you handling your mortgage, long-term lending. So they want to look at a mix. And of course, inquiries, and I'll explain that in more details. Inquiries is when your report is accessed, either you pulling your report or someone else pulling your report. High impact. This is probably the most, I want you to really pay attention to this. This is probably the most important part of the high impact, and this is probably the most misunderstood. I didn't put a slide up here about payments because payments is pretty straightforward. You know, do you pay your bills? Do you pay your bills on time? And do you keep them from falling collection? But this utilization is something that's misunderstood by a lot of consumers and a lot of individuals. Utilization is the amount you owe lenders, and it's one of the most important factors that impact your credit score. And it makes up about 30% of your FICO score. Payments make up about 35, followed by utilization, which is 30%. Let's just use an example here. Let's just say you have a credit limit of $10,000 and you've used 1,000. That means you have available credit of $9,000. The credit utilization, of course, is determined by taking your credit used divided by your credit limit. In this case, your credit utilization is 10%. Now, you're probably asking, Tony, what does that mean? 10%? I see a lot of times published that utilization under 25% or 25 or 30% is okay. But in order to get a real good score, your utilization needs to be about less than 10%. Okay, you're okay, you'll stay fair, you'll stay maybe good with a 25% utilization, but in order to get a good credit score, it needs to be 5% or less. We're gonna use a little more examples. Okay, spouses. Let's just say you have a spouse and you have joint accounts, and your account, let's just say your spouse's account is separate. Let's just say their account, they have a credit limit of $40,000 and they've used 29,000 of it. Again, the credit utilization is determined by 29,000 divided by 40. Notice your spouse has a utilization of 72%. Big difference. That could be a difference because your credit scores and things are separate. That could be a difference between provided you're not on joint accounts, and I'll talk about that later, authorized user. But if you're separate, that could mean that you could have a credit score of 600 and your spouse with a 72 could have a credit score of 750. It's that big of a difference. Okay. So that's just goes to show you a little about utilization. Joint accounts. That's what I want to talk about the next topic. Joint accounts affect your credit score, but you do not have joint scores. Let me say that again. If you and your spouse or whoever have a joint account, you don't have joint scores, okay? Because there are other factors on both of your files that impact what that score is. So it's not going to be the same score, okay? If you have a joint account with someone else, that account will be reflected in both of your credit reports. So if you and your spouse or whoever you are, whoever it is, have a joint account, it's going to be in both of your reports. For example, a loan that was opened by you and your spouse will show up for both of you and will affect, again, both of your scores. That said, your credit history, credit report, and credit score remain separate. Everything else remains separate. As I put in bold, no one, including married couples, has a joint report or a joint credit score. Okay, I'm going to give you another example of utilization. You notice I'm going over utilization quite a bit. So I'm going to go over utilization one more time. So let's just say they shared accounts. They both had joint accounts. Remember how one had a utilization of 10%, which was good, having them 750, and then the other had one of 72, and they had a 625. Okay, let's put those accounts together and let's see what the utilization. So by both of them having a joint account, utilization is 60%. As I mentioned to you, creditors usually want a utilization of no more than 20%. So with that 60%, instead of one spouse having a 720, now they have a 650 or lower, just because they have a joint account. Now, sometimes, you may have some credit extensions and you may have a high utilization, and your spouse have a better utilization. And let's say you don't have joint accounts, so you're not on their account. You may want to get on their accounts to help your utilization, and vice versa. Get on there to help each other's score go up. So again, we're going to go another one of the slides. Okay. So let's just say your credit score, your credit limit was 10,000. Remember earlier it was 1,000 and you had a 10%. So let's say now it's 6,000. Now you 60% of utilization. And that would drop that 750 all the way down to another 650, 625. But now your spouse or an authorized user comes to the rescue. They have $40,000 available credit. They've only used 4,000, making a total between the both of you of 50,000, 10,000 used. Utilization is 20%. So now by you having a utilization that's 60%, now you get a utilization of 20%, your score goes down. You're able to get approved for funding for a loan. You're able to get better insurance rates. You're able to just get better interest rates on your loans. The $10,000, I don't want to pick on consumers and just getting in debt, but the $10,000 that were used, sometimes it's good credit, okay? It could be good credit. Imagine going into Home Depot and you were getting a room remodel. Let's just say you're getting a restroom remodel, the bathroom remodel, and it was $10,000. And get up to the counter and they tell me, Mr. Arps, if you open up a Home Depot account, we'll give you 10% off or 15% off your purchase. Now, I may have been prepared to pay cash for that, but you think I would walk away from $1,000 or $1,500 just because I paid cash for it? No. I could always get the charge and I could pay it back the next day, but they sweeten the pie up a little bit. They'll tell me, Mr. Arps, guess what? You get 0% interest and you don't have to pay it back for 15 months. So now I get 10% off my purchase. I save $1,000. The interest rate they're going to give me is a 0% interest rate, and I get it for 15 months. I want to utilize their money. So that's something. So you look at that, and maybe that's why the 10,000 is there. But even with the 10,000 there, they don't really have a high utilization. So some credit, good credit, is good. Okay. And many times, in order to get these special offers from merchants, you have to do the credit route. And there's nothing wrong with doing the credit route. Just pay it off next month. Okay, inquiries. Credit inquiries are requests for your credit report and can be either hard or soft. Let me explain to you what the hard and soft inquiries. Soft inquiries when, and it doesn't hurt your credit. That's why they X that. Don't hurt your credit. You checking your score, insurance runs something on you, background check, or you requesting their credit report. The other things, you notice how you get in the mail, you get all these special offers for credit cards, and all these marketers are sending things to you to try to get their card. Well, the credit card companies and merchants, they go to these bureaus and say, give us a list, of data of everyone that has a credit score of 750 or better, and we're going to make a credit card offer to them. So when they do that, that does not affect your score at all. What does affect your score is hard inquiries. You apply for a credit card. That could really hurt your credit score. Keep on applying for a lot of cards. Applying for a mortgage. That's a hard pull on your credit, a hard inquiry. Applying for an auto line. Requesting a credit increase. You have a credit limit of $5,000 and you call the credit card company and you say, I want to increase in my limit. Now, some may not pull that's the one thing. You want to ask them, I want to request an increase in my credit limit. Will you do a hard pull or a soft pull on that? Some may increase your credit without a hard pull. But if they want to do a hard pull, you may want to think again about having them do that if you don't necessarily need the increase in your credit. Maybe look at another company. Okay. So those are hard inquiries. One thing about inquiries, the type of, if you do the same industries within a short period of time, for example, if you're trying to buy a house and the mortgage companies, you're going to get trying to find who has the best rates, who has the best customer service, and you may go to 4 or 5 different lenders. Their systems are set up to know that you are inquiring for credit for the same reason in the same industry. So if you go to 4 mortgage companies and your credit is pulled, it only counts as one. And that timeline is usually 30 days or 45 days, but it's only counted as one. Same thing with an auto loan. They see where a dealership pulled your credit. It doesn't count as 4 different credit pulls. It counts as one. Okay. The other thing you want to remember is you can't have too many inquiries in a short period of time. Okay. The number of inquiries that would trigger automatic decline from a creditor varies. Sometimes it's 4 and 6 months. Sometimes it's 6 and 6 months. And so what I'm saying is you may be applying for a Wells Fargo credit card, and in their algorithm and their policy says that anyone who has more than 4 hard inquiries in the last 6 months automatically reject them. It could be you have a credit score of 750 and you wonder, why was I rejected? It's because their system was set up, the rules were set up that they are not going to grant credit to someone who has more than 4 inquiries in 6 months. It could be 2. What they're also thinking is that you might be in trouble. And what are you doing? Are you out there overextending yourself? Or you're out there doing a lot of inquiries, different credit card companies getting more and more debt, and they don't want to get you to get in trouble. So it really varies with what their criteria for automatic rejection of your application based on inquiries. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is length of credit history. Okay. How long your account's been open, uh, specific type of accounts you have, and how long it's been since you used it. Again, this is low impact data. So it doesn't affect you like your utilization, or it doesn't affect you like payments. So it's low impact data. And we're going to move right along because we want to have a little time for Q&A. Joint accounts, again, back to joint accounts versus joint users. Joint accounts is where you're co-owners and you're both liable for the debt. That's a joint account. You and your spouse, your names both on the account. But there is a thing called an authorized user, where you can place someone on your account and they have rights to use it. And the main reason for doing that, because you're putting somebody on your account because they're sort of borrowing your credit history and they're borrowing your good credit. So you put them on as an authorized user. Sometimes parents will do this for their adult children because they know they're going to graduate from college, they want to buy a home. And so they know that if they give them they have a good credit history, those points, although it's a low impact, could really make the difference when getting a loan at a very good rate. One thing about an authorized user, if you let someone make you an authorized user on their account, they can only remove you from the account. So you can get on someone's account and they have an 820 and something tragic happens and that account that you're on goes south, that impacts your credit as well. Collections, again, I want to allow time for Q&A because Jenny, we have about 15 minutes. Okay, Q&A. So collections are pretty straightforward. If you get a collection on your account, it can count against you, okay? And collections can really count. I'm gonna just tell you this, a collection could hurt you as much as 150 points, okay? So you want to be very careful with not getting collections. Public records, like bankruptcies, that all impact your credit. Mortgage rates depends on, a lot of times your monthly payment depends on it. I'm gonna give you an example in this next slide of a $300,000 mortgage, and look at the impact. Now these rates are high even, okay? These are high rates. They're not the rates we had 3 years ago. But a person with a FICO score of 760 to 850 at a 6.4% rate, their monthly mortgage is $1,800. They pay $376,000 in interest. Go down there to a lower 620 to 639, 8%, $2,200. Look at all the interest being paid. So your credit score is going to definitely how much you pay for that house over the lifetime. How long does it stays? Positive information stays. Can stay indefinitely. Negative information, it's got to take it off after 7 years. Chapter 7 bankruptcy, 10 years. Collection account or charge-offs, another 7 years. Credit evaluations periodically. If you have a good credit score and you have credit cards and you have some debt on that, periodically the creditors will go back and reevaluate your account, and you may have a limit of $10,000 and they find out your credit score is dropped, they may drop it to $5,000. Again, checking your credit does not impact the score. How to improve your credit score? You can get a cosigner with good credit and add them and get added as an authorized user. You pick up their history, you pick up their good payment. Pay consistent on time. Always use auto pay. Be careful how you transfer your balances. Keep your credit utilization. I talked about that. We talked about 3 slides. Keep it low. Sell your collection debt in writing. I could talk more in detail about that, but it's important if you're going to sell a collection date to have it deleted, but they must put it in writing, because if they don't put it in writing, it's just like not paying it. And of course, limit the number of inquiries that you hard inquiries. Correct inaccuracies. 43% of consumers say they have been denied credit because of what's in their credit file. 43%. 30% of the credit files have at least one error. That's a large number. Credit scores, do free credit alerts to get free credit reports. If you're trying to start back again, secured credit cards is the way to go. Get your secured credit cards. If you own them in, or if you're young, you're trying to build credit, get secured credit cards. That's the way to go. You put a deposit down, they give you a credit card with a limit. Agreement to delete, I talked about if you have a collection and you wanted to resolve, make sure they put it in writing that they will delete, negotiate it. Don't pay their full amount. If it's $1,000, see if they'll take $200 because they didn't pay much for it. But don't let them talk into send the payment, then we'll take it off. No, they must put it in writing. One thing I was not going to make this presentation about was repairing credit. It was going to be monitoring credit and managing credit. But I had to put this slide in there. Bad credit, we can help. You ever seen that? Have you ever drove down the highway and you saw these signs on the corner says repair credit $500? Well, let me just say this. If your credit report shows a history of debt problems or contain errors, you may consider using one of these services to clean it up. But before you consider doing this, know the way these businesses operate. The vast majority of these cases, hiring an outside company will do only just waste your money. Do more than just only waste your money. So that's a waste of money to hire them. Now there are some reputable. I can't say they're not. There are probably some reputable ones, but they'll be pretty costly. And they have to be licensed by the state to do that. But there are some out there. So I don't want to say that's all the credit repair companies. Again, just to summarize it, you always want to look at your credit, review it, make sure it's accurate, make sure there's no negative things on there. Challenge it. If there's something on your credit report, you got to challenge it. It's time consuming. That's why sometimes people pay people to help them with that, but you have to contact the credit bureau. And if that creditor cannot prove that that's your debt, they have to take it off your report. So challenge those things. And of course, manage it wisely. And again, manage it wisely has to do with looking at that score. If your score was low 6 months ago, don't just not dread looking at it again. Look at it again, pull your report because they're free. You can pull every one of them once a year. I would stagger it, pull one of them in January, another in May, another in September. That way you'll know exactly what your credit score is, okay? And what your credit file looks like. Now, I know we went over quite a bit of information. Well, we have a few minutes left for questions, but I've enjoyed sharing this information with you because I think credit is something it's emotional, it's something that's very personal to people, and it could be very life-changing. So I think it's a very important subject matter. And lastly, there's a lot of social issues tied to credit score that I could spend an entire presentation on socially, what credit scores do as far as certain credit scores, how it impact people and their status in life. But that's another discussion. So having said that, Jenny, what little time we have left, we can take some questions.
Tony, you're great. You're a rock star. You shared so much information. This was incredibly thorough. So well done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It seems like I feel there's a natural part 2 to this in what you just mentioned. So maybe that will come at another time. We would love it if it did. But I want to get into some of the questions here. Let's go back to the beginning of the presentation. When you're first starting out in a business, let's say you want to become a business owner, but your credit is shot. You've gone through some of the circumstances that you mentioned, be it student loans or maybe a family member, something, whatever happened. The credit's not there, but you want to start a business. Is there a certain credit score with which you would say, we're just not going to start the business until your credit score's up? Or would you say, hey, you've got to just run it on cash or what you have? Or what would you say to that person?
I'll say that you want to look somewhere no lower than about 675. I mean, because they give you the business loan based on your personal credit, okay? And a business loan is very risky, but I would say 675 is probably where you could probably get it. Now, there's a lot of micro lenders like your Lyft Funds or Axion. Micro lenders, they look at individuals where credit may be a challenge, and they can loan with lower credit scores, look at other factors. So there's a good chance you can get a loan with some of the micro lenders with a 600. But traditional lenders, you're looking at about 675.
And then back to what you were just talking about, let's say that person's thinking, oh, well, I'm trying to get my credit up and now I'm talking to all these lenders. Are these soft hits? Are they hard hits? What are we talking about as people are looking into this process?
Well, before you go talk to a lender, you need to know where your score is anyway. Okay. So before you pull that score, if I'm talking to a lender, I'm telling them they're going to ask me about my credit score. They go, look at your financial statement and credit score. So when they ask you about your credit score, you say, my credit score is 600, 750. They'll tell you whether or not they can help you. So if we went into a traditional bank where their criteria for credit score is higher, they're going to say, Mr. Arps, get your credit score up and come see us in 6 months because we don't think it'll pass. But a micro lender may do it.
So you can just verbally chat with them rather than pulling it. You just want to say, hey, look,
Yes,
this is
yes,
what
you
I'm coming
definitely.
with. Okay, that's great advice. Just, I mean,
Because a
imagine
lender
you
want
just
to know
speak.
that. A lender want to know that that's one thing that if you tell a lender you don't know what your credit score is, that's a bad sign right there. You need to
Right,
know what your score is.
of course. Now, listen, you were talking about the credit bureau regulation. Who can, and that sounds like to protect everybody, but who can report to them? Or, if somebody feels that, hey, my credit has something happened with my credit and it's outside of my control, can they report to that
They
regulatory
report to the, yeah, they report to the Federal Trade Commission. You can
agency? Okay.
go on, you can Google it, but there's a Federal Trade Commission. Now, keep one thing in mind. Um, when you got to be patient when trying to get these things. That's why a lot of the credit repair people, individuals that do that, when I mention it's a waste of time because it's a long process. And once they get that $500 from you, there's not a lot of work after that. They can get your score maybe down a little bit, have some things taken out, but then those things pop back on your score. So it could be very time consuming. So yeah, most the credit bureaus, if you write them and let them know what your grievance is as far as your score, they're pretty good about trying to get it corrected. But if you have to go past that, there's the Federal Trade Commission.
Okay, that's great. Now, we talked a little bit about spouses. You gave some great information about how that works, and that made I've heard that explained a lot, and actually it kind of finally clicked for me. And if people don't work in your arena, it can be really confusing. But let's talk about this. Let's say you and your spouse want to go into business together. You have an excellent credit score, you have excellent credit, you have a lot of, you've had credit for a long time. Your spouse is in a different situation, but you want to go into business together. How would that work?
Okay, you're saying as far as trying to use one of them's credit instead of the other?
Right. Can you do that? Can you use one business owner's credit and not the other person? Would you need to maybe not have that person be involved in the business until they get their credit up? What would be the most wise decision as a couple?
Good question for especially when it comes to business owners. Most of the time, the lending institution, if you own more than 25% of the business, they're going to pull your credit. So more than likely, if you and your spouse go into business together, both of your scores, they're going to pull both of your credits, and both of you have to satisfy the credit criteria that financial institution wants. They may not, they may say, okay, if it's not your spouse, because Texas Community Property State and it's another individual, they can say, hey, Tony, your score is 600. Jenny, your score is 800. We're going to loan, we had a business together. We're going to loan the business, but guess what, Jenny? You're on the line for all of it. And are you going to sign for it? Well, not all of it, because they can still go after me, but they can say, hey, put up more collateral. But you brought up another good point. I mentioned having joint accounts and you having separate scores. Sometimes it's kind of good not to, if you can, if your spouse has accounts and you have accounts, maybe a couple of joint accounts, that's good because in the event something happened, one of you lose your jobs or whatever, both of you won't have challenge credit. Your spouse may have uh 775, and because some things you start paying late, your score is 660, and the refrigerator goes out and you got to go to Home Depot and get a refrigerator. Well, the spouse with 800, they can go and fill out the application, and because they have a good credit score, they can be able to get the refrigerator with 15% no interest, 15%, just no interest payment. So I like to say we don't need to have both spouses with low credit scores.
Okay, I love these tips. I love this advice for somebody that wants to utilize what you do, connect with you, be re-engage with you, what's the best way to do that? Or can people do that?
Well, you know what has happened over the years? Banks have made it more and more uh, a mission of theirs. Credit literacy. I've never seen so much credit literacy out there. So there's a lot of, all you have to do is call, you could just Google anything about credit. They've got literacy classes, probably one down, not in your neighborhood. So you can go there and get that. And prior to me doing these presentations, a lot of times on Saturday mornings, I would go to the same type of presentation. And just like you were mentioning earlier, I talked about a lot of things in here. And for the audience that's listening to this, some of it, you may not get it all, but you got to keep on attending these and you can learn more and more and more. And this is going to be on YouTube, so you can go back and listen to it again. But what makes you better at understanding credit is to attend more and more of these sessions and learning about it. But back to your question, there's just a lot of different entities that do that. I work with a lot of larger companies,
Sure.
and I don't work specifically with just an individual that wants to get counseling on just credit because hey, the business owners I got, it's enough just trying to counsel them. But for the audience and you out there, there's a lot of different entities out there that are assisting with people with individuals with credit.
Well, Tony, it's been a true pleasure. You are highly knowledgeable in this area and you really have a gift for being able to explain it. So
Thank
thank you
you.
sincerely. I hope that we are able to chat again and learn more from you. I really appreciate the time. And Tony mentioned this. This session will be up on Sarah National's YouTube channel this coming Wednesday. So we give it 6 days to come up. While you are there on the YouTube channel, there is a wealth of information. It's like its own online college full of free information from experts in their field talking about all things business, entrepreneurship, finance, etc. So this is our last session for now, but I want you to make sure and stay tuned into Sarah National's emails, blasts, to the YouTube channel, to the website. And when we re-engage, hopefully at the end of the summer or early fall, we will have hopefully more sessions to look forward to, and you'll be able to learn even more. But again, if you have not attended all of the sessions, this little bit of downtime gives you a chance to really dive into the rest of them. Tony, thank you again for the time.
Thank you, Jim, for having me.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye, everybody.